Hello and welcome to Beyond the Lights, Football Across Texas, where we're talking football in towns with head coaches across the state. I'm your host, Brandon Brown, retired football coach and AD, and I'm glad you could join us today at this week's stop in the Lone Star State as we meet one more coach and one more town that make up the world of Texas high school football.
Favorite run play, I like ISO.
Power. You got to run the power.
Run the picket fence.
So I was hung up at the crow's nest.
My grandfather was the first African-American running back to be All-State.
I was 19 right about the time and went to a church revival and got saved. And that path changed my life. It's about going in there and changing lives.
Mudita, which is finding joy or happiness in others' success.
Now, I got a funny story on this.
Oh, those guys grew up on beans and cornbread. And, I grew up on McDonald's and bologna sandwiches, a little better deal.
Yeah.
I'd like to play the flute, Dad.
It ain't all right either. You're editing, but go ahead.
So if I tell you too much more, I have to kill you?
Hello and welcome to episode 58. This is my first episode back in the year 2026 after my month off. Took off a little longer than I intended to, but it just happened that way. And I'm in Burnet today. Now, Burnet, if you don't know where it is a 4A Division I school located about 50 miles northwest of Austin. And I'm here with head football coach Ben Speer. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well. I appreciate the correct pronunciation, too.
How do they screw it up?
Burnett.
Oh, Burnet.
Like she's a Burnett.
Okay.
Well, you said it. You did
All right.
We
Good.
always say
Now I'm going to screw it up.
No. We always say it's burn it, darn it, can't you learn it?
Oh, there you go. That's a good way to
now
remember
you know.
it.
Now you know.
And some people call it, because I can see my old principal was a Brad Burnett.
Yeah.
So, but he had two T's.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right. So burn it with the one T. All right. Now, hopefully I'll get that now.
You were good.
Well, I appreciate you having me out here
Thank
today.
you.
I know
Thank
it's
you.
kind of a busy time right now. It's just the redistricting and all that just happening. And
Yes, sir.
People trying to get schedules filled now, I guess, a little bit. Did you get your schedule filled?
Filled, knock on wood. Hope
that's
nothing
good.
changes. So
That's good.
We're filled up, ready to go.
Well, good. And I want to talk about that here in a few minutes,
Okay.
see what you thought about the new district. But first, we always get started with you just kind of telling a little about yourself, kind of where you grew up, what got you to where you are at this point today.
Okay. I'm originally from Dalhart, Texas.
Oh,
so
way out there.
Way out there. I'm a panhandle boy. Grew up there and small community again. It's just, man, it was an awesome place for being a kid and growing up and hard work and, a lot of farming communities there. And it was just real blue collar and come to work, get after it. In high school, played just about everything. And, I relate that story to my kids here, and they're just like, man, Coach, you were a pretty good athlete, no? And I was like, well, no, just really didn't have anybody else to play, so, they put you in. So just be grateful for that experience. My head football coach was Woody Martin.
Okay.
So he's a Howard Payne guy. I think he came as a Grosbeck. He was part of the I think the offensive line coach there when they back in the early 90s. They won their state championship in there. So get to see him, run into him, or once in a while. His grandsons actually play for Bryan Wood.
Okay.
So he's retired now, so it's always good to catch up with him.
Now, Bryan Wood's going to be in your district, right?
No. They left. They just left.
They just
dropped down.
left it. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
They dropped down to Division II. So.
Oh, I think they're in my maybe no. I looked at their district the other day for some reason, I guess
Salado.
They're okay. They're in with my son's district then, I guess. Ooh, sorry.
But, no, you're good. And so love the Panhandle. Love going back. It's just the people there. Everybody thinks, wow, why do you want to live out there? Why? There's nothing. You can stand there and watch your dog run away for 2 days, and those things. You're like,
and then write a country song about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just the people, man, and they're phenomenal. And parents still live there. So we go back when we can. It's a little tough with the kids. It's 8.5, 9 hour drive for us, but we sure enjoyed our time that we're able to get there. and had classmates that still keep in touch. We're a close-knit group, and some of us are in education. One of my good friends is actually Josh Reynolds. He's the head coach at Bushland.
Okay.
So he's another Dalhart boy. The principal at West Plains is Eric Gomez. He was my college roommate and one of my best friends growing up. We're just, and it's kind of interesting how we just kind of all fell into the education and coaching and teaching fields.
Yeah. Now, where'd you go from high school? Where'd you go to school?
I went to Panhandle State in Oklahoma. Okay. Originally had scholarships for baseball and football. Didn't quite work out how we wanted it, but I loved the coaching aspect. I loved the competition. I love, of course, we all love Friday nights.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed trying to reach kids to learn something and to instruct them, and and I enjoyed my time there, being a smaller college. Sometimes I missed the opportunity. I didn't go to a big school, didn't get that atmosphere and all that experience. But when I came down to it, and I had a lot of help from professors, and they knew who I was, and they checked in on you, and it's kind of the things you get from a small college. Did my student teaching at Stratford with Brad Thiessen. So I got to spend a fall with him, and see Eddie Metcalf was there too, and be on staff with them. And they were coming off a state championship and doing a rebuilding thing, and it was a lot of fun. It was a eye-opening experience for a young coach, and just be around all the success and the hard work that they put into it. And I was introduced to that side of it and the office side of it, at that age. And man, I loved it. And I just even more verified of what I wanted to do. And still talk to Coach Thiessen. Of course, he's the director of athletics for Burnet ISD now, and still can pick up the phone and call him, and that's always a plus. And to visit with him as well. And that's also where I got introduced to Coach Wood, because he was the head coach at Sunray at the time. And Stratford and Sunray, of course, played each other in district, and introduced to him. And I was really impressed with his team and who he was, and how he carried himself. And that'll come back around in about 15 years. So, but anyway, moved on from there. I got my first job in Lamesa, and one of those fun towns that you got to know how to. We have quite a few around here, you have Llano, and you have Blanco, and Lake Buchanan's out here, and everybody wants to call it Buchanan, but you can tell if you're from out of town or not by the way you pronounce things. And there's also a couple small towns around here as well. But Lamesa, I went there. Carlin Branson gave me my first opportunity. And I remember starting out in the middle school, and I'm teaching health and athletics, and then getting into that. And I was just thinking, I got my first paycheck, and I was just like, wow, they're paying me to do this, something I wanted to do and I loved. And there's, of course, when you think back over your career and how you started out, how would you have done things different? And I wasn't one coming into the coaching field thinking I knew it all. I knew I didn't know it all. Some of my regrets, probably the biggest regrets, was I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't really dig deep. I was just, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you want. And I didn't know the why, other than he told me to.
Yeah.
The coach told me to. I'm going to do it. I'm going to teach it. I'm going to do it the best I can. And, I should have took more time. Just, okay, coach, tell me why, and I didn't want to felt like what you would say the weakest link of the staff, and going in on things. And so I didn't ask questions where I shouldn't be scared. And that's, one of the things of the many that, ask these new guys coming there, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay. So tell me this, because when I look back at my playing days in high school, that was one of those things. that I regret not asking. I didn't know why. I was just told down block or this, or, when I was tight end or when I was quarterback, just look at that. I wasn't ever told why. And I was like, God, I could have been a lot better player if I had known why I was doing it. So being that way as a young coach, has that affected how you are as a head coach and how you deal with kids when you're teaching them?
Absolutely. I always say the kids are an extension of us on the field. And if you can get the kid to understand, the player to understand the why we call it, if you can get him to think like a coordinator, man, that's just an added value that you have. And some of the best teams you had, me being a defensive coordinator, is when the Mike linebacker and I are on the same page, and he knows exactly what I want here. Or I can have a conversation when he comes off the field. I say, what are you seeing? What do you feel like's working? And we can talk like coaches, and not as a player to a coach. And you're trying to get to a guy. Well, they're just doing this, coach. Well, tell me, what's that guard doing? What's he telling you? What are your reads? What are you getting? Can you get through the back gap on power? Are they cutting you off? Those conversations you have, and the why we call these stunts, or the why we're calling these coverages. The same thing as a secondary coach with his safety. If he has that relationship of what we're doing, we're on the same page, man. It's so valuable. Then you're just throwing stuff at them, and you're trying to hopefully they can and execute it. But and that's also what I express to those coaches, those young coaches that are coming in, is the best thing you can do is ask questions. If you have a suggestion, well, bring me an example. Show me where it works, and tell me why. And I think Coach Wood said it best. If you have a great idea and you sit on it, well, shame on you. We need to know. In the end, we may say, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good, but no. But you shouldn't be afraid to ask questions, give examples backed by a substance. And the other thing is always, if you're the young guy, the new guy on staff, get in somebody's hip pocket is what I always saw it. And I learned that when I went to Carrollton, and there was a coach there. His name was Billy Hammond, and he had been in it for so long, 25 years, I believe, by that time. And he was just one of the hardest working guys. And I, being new on staff and living in the big city and a panhandle boy in the metroplex, and I was just like, I was going to find the guy who was the hardest worker, and I was going to get in his hip pocket, and I was going to be his right-hand man. Where's he going? Okay, all right, we're in the office, and all of a sudden he gets up and leaves. I was like, all right. Where's he going? I'm going with him. He did something on the field, or he's working on the gator, or anything like that. And I learned so much from just, not sitting behind a desk or a computer, but just seeing men who did it well and seeing how they did it, and then just learning from them. So from Lamesa, I went to Carrollton, and I was there with Larry McBroom, and he was he's a Hall of Fame coach from Oklahoma who came over. He had won a lot of state championships there at Ardmore, and learned a work ethic from him as being a head man, but still so involved in the day-to-day of coaching. And his energy was unmatched. We had coaches that were younger than me, and he would he'd outpace us. He'd just constantly going and moving, and everything was intense. And I also saw that with Coach Wood, and just there's no wasted time. Everything we're doing is with a purpose. Whether you're running up to the weight room, or you're going out to the practice field, we're moving. We expect it from our kids, so we should do the same. And we only get so many minutes a day with them, and time is valuable for them and for us, and so we got to do the most of what we've been given. So it was there at Carrollton, and then I moved to I got a job at Colleyville Heritage, which is one of those things is so important, and Texas high school coaches in the community it's never about what you know. You can always, I feel like if you're willing to learn, we can teach you. But it's who you know, and it's your work ethic, that really helps you going forward. And the only reason that I got a chance there, is that they had a spot open, but we had a coach on staff who knew somebody who'd been a former coach there. Cunningham was him, and they called him up and they said, this guy, you got to talk to him. And a guy I never met vouched for me, and I got the job. And I love, and that was Coach Mike Fuller was the head coach there at the time.
I know Coach Fuller.
Yeah, he was there, and man, I got involved with them, and that was a wide eye-opening experience because that's big-time football. At the time, they were 5A, which is the largest classification, and that was fun. You played in some big atmospheres, some big games, and big venues, and we were good. The first year we were really good, and they were successful, and learned a lot from him and that staff. Of course, right now he's at Grapevine Faith.
I went and watched him play last year.
Yeah.
He played over here. He played at St. Michael's in Austin. Pointing the wrong direction that way, I guess. And so I went over to watch him play because an old friend of mine from high school, their kid played for him. Was a senior last year for him. So I went and watched one of his games, got to visit with him afterwards.
Yeah, I'm so glad he's back into it. And I've talked to him quite a bit still. On his staff, the DC at the time was Carl Strelo, who's now the head coach at Keller. You also had Chris Price was there. He's the head coach over here at Leander. Then you have Jay Northcutt was on there too, who's the head coach at Friendship.
Golly.
Then you had Chase Hargis, who's now the DC at Allen. I mean, there's just the list just goes on, and those are the guys I remember and wrote down. It just his coaching tree is unbelievable, and so I learned a lot from him. And he was also the first one that encouraged me. He's like, and I saw myself. I was like, yeah, okay, I want to, at first in coaching, man, I'm just going to be a good soldier. I just want to work hard and do the best I can with whatever assignment I had. And I was going to do that. And later on, I was like, okay, I think I want to be a defensive coordinator. I like it. I like seeing the field from that direction. That kind of relayed back to my playing days. I kind of saw the whole picture. I understood it at that age, why we did things and how we matched the front with the back end, and I just fell into love with the defensive side of it. Even though playing with at that time you had your Tony Franklin system there at Colleyville Heritage, and you go back to the old Mike Leach theory. I was like, all you got to do is stop him once, but I learned a lot coaching both sides of the ball there. And then he was the first one that brought me in and set me down, and he goes, you could be a head coach. And I never had anybody just speak that into me, saying, and I think it's one of those times in the moment that God speaks through somebody else. And I think he does that a lot. It's just, are you listening? Yeah. Are you listening? And he spoke that into me, and I was just like, I didn't even see that in myself, at the time. And he's like, you could do this. I was like, wow. And then he goes, in doing so, he goes, I'm going to put you in charge of both freshman teams. You're going to have a staff, under you, 5 coaches. You're in charge of it. Treat it like a 2A school. And
that's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah, it was. And I said, okay. And we were very successful with that and enjoyed it. From there, I got an opportunity. In that time, I met my wife. We started dating, and she's from Lubbock. So we both had kind of that West Texas small town connection. And we met in the metroplex and fell in love there. We got married. We was at Colleyville for about 3 more years. But we both knew and understood in our hearts this is not where we wanted to raise a family. We love the metroplex. I love it. Love going back to it. There was so much to do, especially you were going here to there and Rangers games and Cowboys games, Maverick games. There was so much to do, and it was a great time. But in our hearts, we're like, this is not where we want to raise our family. And just being from a small town, we both come from large families. we both come from families of 6, and at the time, that's not what we were thinking either. That's what we ended up at. But, at the time, we were just like, we wanted to be more small, in a smaller town, smaller community, and got a opportunity to go to Burnet with Mike Dormady. Got to go down there, be the assistant head coach and the head track. Started off in that and ended up being the DC. And, man, we really started to take off there and transform things there. And we loved it. We loved the town of Burnet. It's totally different now than we went there. I mean, you can't tell where San Antonio ends and Burnet begins now. But we sure enjoyed our time there and our relationships. And then he left to go to Wiley East. And that was tough because we knew we didn't want to go back to the metroplex. And we when we had left Colleyville, Jen was pregnant with our first child, and I was doing the baseball and football side, and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do more. I think as far as sports and playing wise, baseball was my first love. Loved it. Still this day I love it. But we kind of sat down and we're like, Jen was kind of like, we got to choose one. We can't do both these crazy seasons.
Yeah,
at
that's
once.
a long
And
year.
And so we focused more on the football side, and I switched over to track, which is a little bit more relaxed and not as time consuming as the baseball was in the spring, and that helped with having a new family. So in 2018, we had a coaching change there at Burnet. Shay Hendricks came in, and I was kind of frustrated with Mike leaving. I didn't want him to leave. I said, man, we're fixing to roll. We got things heading the right direction. We're going to be good, And so I was frustrated with that. At the same time, we didn't want to leave because we loved the community so well. But Shay came in, and nothing against him. He wanted his guys there, and he kind of offered me a spot, but it was on the offensive side of the ball. And I was just like, no, it's, that's okay. I appreciate it, but no, thanks, but no thanks. And then I was watching the board, and then had a job pop up in shallow water. And it was Coach Wood was there. I knew he was there, and it was a spot that fit me well. And we just had our third child. So we were looking at that, and I saw that come up, and I knew who to call. I called Thiessen, and he's like, "Hey, Coach, what are you doing?" So we talked about 5 minutes. It's like, "Hey, shallow water's got an opening," and he goes, "Oh, you want to talk to Wood about it?" And I said, "Yeah, you mind calling him?" He goes, "Not at all." He goes, "I'll talk to you later." Hung up on me. And then he called Wood, I guess, and about 5 minutes later, Coach Wood called me. He said, "Come on." He said, come visit. And so we went down there, and I talked to Jen about it, and we were excited about the possibility. Of course, a lot of her parents were still in Lubbock. Getting closer to my parents were still in Dalhart. We're like, man, this is it. This is, family's big to us, and we want to be close around our family. And, God's moving us for this. So I went down and interviewed with Coach Wood, and he's everything I remembered. And at the end of it, I said, "Well, Coach, when will you decide, who you want, and, what's the timeline on this?" And he goes, "What I want?" It's like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "I just don't know if you want us." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, come on." And so hopped in the car, drove back, and lots of time on the road there, and that's about 6 hours, and just praying and thinking about it, and talked to Jen. We got home, and we're like, okay, let's do this. So sold our home, moved to shallow water, and loved it there. That 2018 bunch was special. They were quarterfinals bunch, and learned a lot from Coach Wood on, how to run a staff, how to run a program, being an athletic director, going back to a small community, and loved that part of it. And was just really in tune with what he was doing, and how, a lot of what I do now is because of him and how I saw it done so well. And these other guys, not taking away from these other guys, but I just saw, man, that fit me, and how he handled that in the off season. He made me fall in love with the off season again, the importance of it, the toughness of it, the challenge of it, the discipline of it, and just grateful for that. And then he got an opportunity to come here, and he had one hire. And he said, "You're my one. You want to come?" And, you know, at the time I was the DC at Shallow Water, and that was tough. That was tough. That was because it meant moving further from family. And also not only that, but, you know, drawing my grandkids away from their grandparents as well, and Jen away from the hometown of Lubbock. And, you know, and that was probably one of our toughest decisions to make, you know, and we came down and visit, and then Jen came on her own to visit, and we really loved the hill country, enjoyed that, but we're just like, we're resetting everything again. And I didn't want to be that coach that drug family around the state, because those guys always come back and they'll say, "Man, I wish we could have just stayed somewhere, you know, sowed some roots and call it home and let the kids grow up in the community."
But once I'll tell you this from experience doing that with my sons, which my daughter, she's going to get to have been in the same place for 6 years when she graduates Fredericksburg. But my sons, when they went off to college, it was the easiest thing because they knew people from all over the state, and they had one giant network of friends already when they went off to college because they knew people from all over the state. It really was weird.
Very true.
You know, so, you know, there'll be some things they'll look back on it when they're older one day and go, you know, that's pretty neat. I've already got friends here from such and such. And so maybe it won't be such a bad deal to them.
Man, it's not. And, the God, He speaks those truths to us of, you know, when he puts us in a position. And, I think, and Coach Wood, and there would have been nobody I would have picked up and moved our family for, or more or less my wife. And Jen believed that much in Coach Wood and who he was and the man he was and the programs that he ran. That side, she believed in it. And Coach Wood said, "I'm going to do this. We're going to get this thing turned into 2 to 3 years. He goes, "I'm going to retire." He goes, "And I'm going to hand it over to you." And he goes, "I promise you that." And so we took a leap of faith. We moved down here in 2021, right in the middle of the whole real estate boom, housing boom, I guess. And we couldn't find a place to live. Jen and the kids were living at her parents in Lubbock for a couple months, and then we had to move them to Lampasas, and then so I was commuting back and forth, and then we lived in a hunting lodge right outside of town. It was a loft, actually, so the 6 of us were in a one-room loft, and those are some funny experiences we like to laugh and think back on. And then we finally got the house ready here, we moved in, and it was in. There were some struggles here the first couple years of just making what we do important again. And everybody said, Burnet's had this success, and they have a great history, and yes, they do, but there's not the Stephen McGee's or the Jordan Shipley's. They don't walk the halls anymore, but they do have great, hardworking kids, and the parents have high expectations as well. And we wanted to make it important again, and for them to understand the value of of football and what it can teach young men. So we kind of came up with the slogan that was during Donald Trump's deal and the MAGA movement, and ours was make football great again. And so we had fun with it, and just being with him and let's keep learning. And there was 2 times I talked Coach Wood out of retirement, and he's like, "I think I'm going to." It's like, no, let's keep growing, Rico. And then he talked about it again. I was like, "No, man," and we got a good thing going. Let's keep rolling. And I wasn't pressured. I wasn't chasing that head coaching title. I knew it's something I eventually wanted to do, but as long as I was under him, that's all I wanted to be around.
Yeah.
And you get to a point, this of being on staff, where you're just so in tune with the head coach, who was also the offensive coordinator. He knew what I was thinking. I knew what he was thinking. We didn't have to sit down and meet and discuss of how we're going to game plan, how we're going to approach this. We just knew. And it's the same deal, adjustments at halftime. Got to the point where he just totally trusted me in what we were doing. And that meant a lot coming from him. But it's just, you get into those spots where you're just totally in tune with the other coach and our philosophy and how we're going to attack teams. And we had that success in that 2023 season, and that was a lot of fun. And then he sat me down after it was over, and he says, "This is it." And I said, "Coach," and he goes, "No, you can't talk me out this time." I said, "Man, I'm just having so much fun. I'm having so much fun." And I said, "I don't." And I said, "If you leave, definitely I want it. But I want you here. I want you here. I'm not chasing you off. I know you said those things. I know this is after year 3, and you said 2 to 3. I said, but I'm not worried about that. I want to stay here and be doing what we're doing." And he goes, "I know, but it's time. It's time." And he goes, "I gave you my word that this is happening." And we just had a great season. We were district champs. We went 2 rounds deep. Something they hadn't done here in quite a while. It's about 9 years, I think, at the time. And he goes, it makes sense. It makes sense right now. And who knows what happens next year. We might not have this opportunity where it works out best for you. And, it means the world that, someone would do that and give you their word and stick to it.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to. And we were rolling, and and he wasn't have any pressure to change things up. Definitely, I wasn't pressuring him, but he wanted to stay to his word and his promise of what he promised me coming here. And so he retired and resigned, and I assumed the role of head coach. And so it's been a whirlwind ever since. It's like drinking through a fire hose. You're getting water, but a lot more than you need. So just thankful for those men and those places I've been have helped shape me to, where I'm at today.
Yeah. No, well, that's neat. And I didn't know much about the town of Burnet until I started learning more about it when we went down to Fredericksburg, and then they were playing y'all, all the time. Or my daughter would have a volleyball tournament over here or something. Something was always going on over here. And, of course, then I see you got the storms, and so now I stop there every time on my way through.
Storms, yeah.
And but it's a neat little town here.
It is. And people like it because the kids you get are the parents who graduated here and never left. They love the community. Family's important. They like it because it's 45 minutes from Cedar Park. It's got everything you need.
Yeah.
But it's enough outside of the Austin. You don't deal with all that Austin stuff. It's kind of a cushion. Liberty Hill's the cushion between us. There's not a huge amount of growth. It's a steadily growth, but it's not blowing up like the outskirts of Austin are. And also you get the parents who have moved away, gone to college, had kids, and now they want their kids to have the same small town community. Their kids play everything. They can be a part of the band, be a part of the AG or FFA, still do all the things. And there's not the pressure that, no, you got to do this, or you can only do this. And they want that same experience for their kids. And then we'll get some that move out because they want their kids to do the same thing. They want them to be a multi-sport athlete. And they still believe at a 4A Division I that they can play multi-sports and have that success and not be pressured to just, select one and that's it.
Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, and that is Coach Randy Jackson.
If you're training your athletes for strength, speed, and technique, you're just keeping up with everyone else. The real edge today is in mental performance. My name is Randy Jackson, and with 33 years of experience, I understand the messaging athletes need, both in season and off season. This is why I created the Blueprint, a plug-and-play system where I serve as your team's virtual mental performance coach. Unlike traditional character programs, the Blueprint delivers mental training that empowers your athletes to think sharper and perform better. Every Division I and pro team trains the mental game. Let me be that coach for your team and give your athletes the competitive edge they need. Join the Blueprint family and help us develop the next generation of mentally tough athletes. Learn more about the Blueprint on CoachRandyJackson.com or call or text me at 214-471-0070.
So tell me, switching up districts realignment came out last week or whatever. What's y'all's new district like? What are your thoughts on it?
New district, wasn't surprised by it as much as us being taken to Region 3.
Yeah.
We were 4 years ago we were in Region 4. And then we went to Region 1, and we're just sitting on that corridor, and we're thinking Region 4, Region 1, where we're going. There's a chance that we could be with Fred again and, Kamau schools and all that, or we could have been in with Austin. And then, there's a chance we go back to Region 1, and it kind of keeps the same. And but I think we were all shocked about the Region 3, but that's what the UIL does best. They
keeping everybody on their toes.
Keep you on your toes, and they think you just when you think And sometimes I feel like they look at these predictions and they're like, okay, yeah, watch this. That the whole, okay, hold my beer, watch this. I'm gonna show
there you go. Padilla said this, and what's it? So we're gonna say
Step said this, and well, here you go. So the district, looking at over top to bottom, of course, you've got Stephenville. It's head and shoulders above the rest, but at the same time, we know who they are. Whether that's good or bad. It's nice, having the big dog in your district.
Yeah.
At least, if you see them again in the playoffs, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to see them, right out the gate. For the rest of us, we lost Bryan Wood. It's a very good team. And then China Spring and Gerald came in.
China Spring moved up, didn't they?
They moved up from Division II.
Okay.
So you top to bottom, you look at it. Yes, Stephenville is ahead of everyone else, but then out of there, then the rest of the guys, you kind of feel it's pretty evenly matched. And I think you get into one of those districts that become fun, where it's any given Friday night, anyone can win.
Yeah,
there's just no outright winners. Lampasas has probably had the most success out of that group out of the last, Coach Rogers there at the last 10 years. Has done really well with them, so they've got the experience going playoff wise.
They had a few of their studs were seniors this past year, weren't they?
A couple. Yes, so they had some skilled kids. I think what they're back is they're returning a lot of good defensive linemen and offensive linemen.
Okay.
They were young this year, but they have some experience there. But they always does a good job of filling those guys in when they graduate. Some.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, what? Okay, kind of jump topics here for a minute because I'm kind of curious your thoughts on some of this. With all of the NCAA portal stuff, and I'd talked to several college coaches, who had talked about how they're going portal all over the place now when they're looking to recruit. What's that trickle-down effect been like to the high schools, and do the college coaches even still come by regularly and visit, or has it changed all of the dynamics?
It's changed. For us, I think you get the transfer portal, the NIL. I think it's the attitude of some of the athletes or parents have changed. I mean, we don't have the NIL in Texas, but you do have that in some high school areas or in the states. Thankfully, it's not here. But you get the attitude of the transfer portal as in, if I'm not getting what I want, I'm going to jump ship instead of sticking with it and earning a spot. There's something about it that says about a kid or an athlete he didn't get what he wanted. Well, what are you going to do now? You going to take your toys and go home or go elsewhere? Or are you going to buckle down? And are you going to get better? We don't play favorites. We play kids that's going to set us up for success. It's amazing. Some of these parents think that, well, you're not playing my son because you don't like him. Is that it? My job is based off performance, and I'm just not going to play the best athlete because I don't like him.
I used to love that argument.
Those are always. But I think some of that attitude of if we're not getting what we want, we're going to look elsewhere. And so we got to fight about that. We still have college recruiters come by. All the time, always wish we had something more for them. It's always when the Division I guys come, hey coach, we thought. I was like, man, I wish I had somebody that I could he's it. But they do. They always, we're right in this 281 corridor, so they always pop in and stop. So they're still making their rounds. You take a look at the college game, and I'm more of a fan of the college game. Just the atmosphere that it brings more than the NFL game. And I love the college because, it was pure at the time, even though we know it wasn't pure. The NIL's really opened things up. And it kind of comes, there's no limitations, I feel at it, or restrictions or governing bodies over it right now. And it kind of feels like the Wild West. So, that kind of, frustrates you about it. At the same time, growing up, I'm a Tech fan. So I was like, hey, it's kind of helped us out. Cody Campbell's kind of helped us out. And, but that says a lot about Joey McGuire and his ability to take in those guys who are there for, you still have to come and put a team together.
Yeah.
It may look different and recruiting looks different, but you still got to mesh it and make it work. And you got to put together a locker room too. So that speaks volume about him and what he's been able to do. But so that standpoint, I like it because, Red Raiders have done well with it. And it helps them compete. But, in the grand scheme of things, you like to see some changes come about that and get it more under wraps.
Yeah, because I remember Coach Burleson telling me last year when I visited with him out at Hardin-Simmons, he said that he's still, one of the first things he asks kids is, why do you want to be here? And he goes, don't even think about coming if you're going to turn around and transfer the next year. He goes, we're here to work with you for 4 years or whatever. I mean, do you think that's realistic really anymore?
Man, it's tough to say, from what do you see, so I think some try to still do that, but at the same time, you feel like if you don't take advantage of those opportunities, then you're behind in the game.
Yeah, be hard
and I think that was, one of the reasons why Nick Saban got out of it is because his whole thing is the process and taking these kids and transform them, move them together and along. And when you lose that aspect of it, that's hard. I think, some of my favorite kids, coaching kids, are the seniors who finish. I mean, and those might be some of my favorite kids. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but it's the kid who continued to show up every practice. He got up here early in the mornings. He's up here at 5:30. He doesn't miss the weights, doesn't miss the the weekend requirements of running, lifting, watching film. He's here, even though he might not see the field. He may never see the field. And those guys, you try to find role positions for them, but some you can't.
Yeah.
Some you don't because you still have to be successful. But I think just them and the attitude of finishing, man, they probably learn more than, your kids that you have playing both ways. Those guys are showing up knowing that I got to show up. I got to do these stuff because I'm not coming off the field on Friday. I'm the guy. I'm the dude. And when you're not that, well, what now? Are you going to quit or are you going to stay with it? And so I believe our first year we were here, I think we had 11 seniors. This past year we had 24 that finished. And not all of them contributed. And I think that speaks a lot about a program when you have those guys that are still here.
Yeah.
Still here. They find value in it. And I think it's also important for us as coaches to recognize those guys. and make those other guys, the more gifted guys, the guys that are seeing all the playing time, know and understand these guys still have a role. You know, you present them with a role, and let them know that they're important to a team. And so, I know I kind of went off in my own direction, but the value of it is, you know, those guys, they stick with it and they work hard. And even though you didn't get what you wanted, or maybe what you thought you deserved, you still finished.
Yeah.
And so that's important for us coaches to realize that and value it in those kids, and you know, going forward, and they can learn. They've learned a lot already when they graduate, you know, and they can take that to college, or as a husband, you know, as a father, you know, as an employee, you know, sometimes you're not going to get what you want or what you deserve, what you think you deserve. But we know if you don't work at it, you definitely won't.
Yeah.
And so I just value those guys.
Well, and I think it goes back to what I know you know, and so many other coaches out there know, is it's not about what that kid can bring to the program. It's about what that program can bring to the kid.
Absolutely.
You know, because we know that you got less than 1% that are going to go on making some kind of living in athletics, you know, athletics related, you know, or playing the sport at least, not counting, you know, coaching, that kind of thing. And so why are we going to waste that much time if it's not going to benefit them in the future? But what can our program do for the kid? Not what do they bring to the program? You know, so that's exactly what you were talking about right there. Okay, so public schools catch crap nonstop, and I mean it's just it ticks me off, because even with people that I'm generally maybe politically aligned with, they bash public schools all the time, and it's like, okay. You know, if you actually had the foggiest idea what's going on in a public school, then you would understand why we do struggle with certain things here or there, you know. So what when people do have a tendency to talk negative about public schools, how do you defend that? And how do you defend our public schools, and what are your arguments to defend public education in general?
Well, in Texas, you know, and I just speak as within the state, you know, I don't venture outside that much, but
yeah, I don't want to talk other states. I don't have a clue.
I just always just try to talk about what I know. You know, I think public schools, you know, they're literally the heart of Texas communities, you know, especially in a rural area, you know, like we are. You know, it's just they're more than just buildings. You know, they're usually your largest employers, like we are here. You know, they're the social hubs, you know, of a community. They bring everybody, all walks of life, in together, whether it's a Friday night, you know, under the lights or in the gym. You know, it just brings the community out, and it brings the community together, and it's fun still being in a one-horse town here, where things shut down. You know, we got games, well, businesses will close, and everybody paints the town Kelly green, you know, and or travels to games. And, you know, those are special things. You know, it's just the anchor of a community. You know, I think also that you look at, I think we're trending in public education in Texas is trending upwards. You know, we're not backsliding. You know, you get the ugly rap sometimes about test scores or this and that, but we are moving in the right direction, and that has everything to do with, you know, your leadership, your admin. You know, there's high standards in it. I feel like also with public schools, you operate in the light. You know, there's no question of where things are going. Or where the funding is going or coming from. You got, you know, your boards, your public meetings, your transparent budgets. You know, there's a lot of accountability into that. And when you get into some of those other situations, you're like, well, where's the money going? Where's the funds? Or who's responsible? And for us, yes, being public educators, we have to answer to parents. And in all honesty, we got to answer to the board, and we answer to the parents. And so there's that transparency that I feel like that's in public education that's not, you know, in other areas.
Yeah. No, I get, you mentioned that test or something earlier, and I get so sick of the test because my wife she teaches fourth grade at Fredericksburg, and she'll show me questions every once in a while from her math, and she teaches the ESL kids. She'll show me questions, and she'll be like, "What is this asking?" And I was a math teacher, and I'll be like, I don't have the foggiest idea what they want, because they're not testing what they're it's not testing math skills. So, I mean, when I get ticked just thinking, if they would just test math skills, they wouldn't say our scores are going down. Quit testing reading comprehension in a math question, So, yes. I mean, there's so many things that people on the outside that see, oh, well, the scores were down. Well, yeah, look at this test they just gave these fourth graders. It's not math. That's, that's reading comprehension. And so it's just, there's so many things that we catch a bad rap about that I wish people outside understood what we're dealing with, and why a lot of these things appear to look worse than they are. But you talking about the school being the hub of the community, there's no other place in the world that, has things like we do here in Texas when it comes to, the way athletics and everything just kind of revolves around it and keeps a town positive and motivated and can have good times even when things aren't good outside of it,
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
That's good. Okay, now what is something maybe you wish we could change that might help improve our public schools?
I'd have to go back to, a couple things. I think Robin Hood has to be. I understand why they started it, but when you have taxpayers' money, you would like to see that money stay in the community, and they be able to see and validate where that money's going. And when they recapture so much of it, millions of dollars, and I say millions of dollars are moving out of the district. Yeah. And at the same time, we want to pay our teachers more. Have the ability to do that, but it's hard when you have a lot of funds are moving out. We want to increase. We have some great facilities here, but we still have to improve facilities, in our maintenance and operations of things. And as buildings age, we have to repair, or we got to figure out, do we need to build new buildings or larger as we continue to grow? And you got to keep up with the times. And then the allotment of what the student has, that hasn't changed. What the state gives us per student, was it 2019? Something that they have. And so, and you compare that just with the way everything else is going in the country, and, the price and the cost of living, everything is going up. Why isn't, our funding for students, why isn't that matching everything else, and it's not, and so I think that would be the other part of it, the funding side of it. We feel kind of sometimes that we get handcuffed with that, and you're trying to make the most out of it. You shouldn't be a teacher or coach because of your pay, but you should be able to make a decent living and provide for your family. Yes. And I feel like we've taken that away from a lot of these places, these rural areas, where you've handcuffed us a lot, with the state has, and so I would like to see those, and particularly those two things, looked at again and redressed, just going forward. How are we going to move forward with public education in the state of Texas?
Okay. Well, who did they just put on the state board football? Oh, McCoy. Didn't they put? What is he going to be doing? Maybe I need to try to interview him. Maybe I need to try to get an interview with him. Let's see what he's going to be doing after we talk some football.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you were going to go back and give advice to a first-year head coach, okay, because this was your second year as the head coach here, or third?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you were going to go back and give advice to someone that's a first-year head coach, and tell them about three things that you say, hey, these are some of your essentials of what you've got to make sure you do when you're starting your new program, what would those things be?
Essential is you've got to figure out your staff, and the loyalty is huge, and that, and having guys on board and trusting and understanding of what you want to do and going forward, that's huge. Your administration support, and it's been great. It's been phenomenal here, and of course having Grant Freeman come aboard as being our AD has taken a lot off my plate. He also has a great vision for the district. So you have an athletic director, if you aren't him, that has a great vision for you and your program, and also trust. You have that trust that you all can work together, and that support system that I can go and sit in his office and it's like, hey, I'm dealing with this. What are your thoughts? You've done it before. You've sat in my seat. How'd you handle it? So having that loyalty and trust and just the support of administration, those, it doesn't matter, that can make your life miserable, or it can make you enjoy your job. And, they say you're never really ready, and that's true. You've got to be understanding that when you assume this position, and I tell this to those guys all the time, when you move into this office, it's a leadership role, and leadership is lonely. It's lonely.
A lot of people don't realize that, and I used to tell my wife that all the time. I was like, God, I don't have any friends.
And that's a hard, because you go from the assistant's office, and that's fun. You're in there with 10 guys or whatever it is, and you've got that offense, and that camaraderie is so important. And I remember talking to my wife, and I said, what I missed. She asked, what do you like in this and what do you miss? I said, I miss being in that office with those guys, but I'm stuck over here working on stuff with parents or admin, doing things, and all those kind of behind the scene head coaches, they all know what those are. But the leadership role is lonely. But that's okay, because you understand there has to be a separation. But you have to also be able to control what's going on in there. And you have to make tough decisions, as you do with your players, as you do with your staff, and they have to know there is that separation there. But then in times you're handling a lot of stuff outside of football. You have to do it, of course, by yourself. And that's where your support staff comes in, your admin and also your AD. That's important. But I told Jenna at the same time, when I was, just sitting in here and working on things, but if I can hear them coaching in there, working on concepts and schemes, and at the same time, it's, laughing and enjoying it.
Yeah.
That makes me smile, because I know I've got the right guys in there, and we're all on board and moving in the same direction, and they enjoy being here, and that helps. But get ready for that leadership role. It's lonely, but it in a way it has to be, and it has to be a little bit of a separation, and just get ready for it to not be about football. As much as you're the head coach, you're the guy. It's really not about football. It's about hiring and making sure those guys are doing and holding them accountable, and moving the program is in the right direction. It's up to me to give them the direction I want our program to go, and it's up to them to implement that, and seeing the value, and then not only expecting that, but also inspecting and correcting. And so it's sometimes I just wish it could go back to coaching outside linebackers, but it's what God's called me to do, and it has its highs and lows, but I think the main thing about it was, well, why do you want to be head coach? And coaching itself is a calling. I believe it gives me the opportunity to and broaden my influence, whether that is as a coach or through my faith, or as a husband or as a father. Hopefully I'm able to show these younger coaches the rights and wrongs and ins and out. And I can definitely show you the wrong way to do it, or I can tell you that how it shouldn't have done it, and how moving towards what we should. And so But that's kind of the main reason, and I wanted to increase my influence over young men.
Yeah, no, that's good. You brought up some good points there. What? Okay, so talking about your influence over young men, what is the most important life lesson you want your athletes to have learned playing for you?
Be great at whatever you do. Be great at whatever you do. We teach compete, and it doesn't matter what we're doing. You got to do it great. And I always, and I'm not for sure where I got it, but I've heard that once, and it may be a Dabo somewhere, whatever it is. But it's just do it your best. Do whatever you're doing best. You're gonna be. There's gonna be times in life, that you compete, and you just got to keep going. You got to keep showing up, and working hard. And we're never promised anything. We're never guaranteed. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. So give it your best. And that kind of came out. Our team motto this past season was show up, and it kind of came from this summer. We had the floods come through here when there were several lost their lives, and the whole town kind of shut down. And we were actually, my family and I were at a family camp over Lakey, and with H.E. Butt Foundation's Lady Lodge. We were down there.
You're way down
so
there.
Right, it would, but it's as the crow flies, you're about 8-9 miles from Hunt.
Yeah.
And so we got
down by me.
Yeah, we got stuck on the Frio, and we couldn't get out, and we couldn't get service. And so by the time they cleared the debris out, so we could get out, we got to the top of the cliff, and then our phone just started blowing up. It says, "Hey, your house is flooded. Your house is flooded." And so as we're trying to come home, we're trying to figure out how to get home. Are we going through Fredericksburg? We got to go all the way around. 29 was shut down. 281 was shut down. We're just trying to, we don't know what our houses look at. Our neighbor's calling us. He's like, "I'm trying to get in your house. I can't get in." Of course, the power's off. We can't let them in. And so, I remember coming back home, and the wife and I were just pretty silent and kind of in our own thoughts, and you're just automatically what ifs. And we had heard about the floodings in Hunt while we were there, and we were just, there was a lot going on that day. My wife lost the center stone out of her ring. That broke off, so we lost that. And, she had a great attitude with it. She goes, "I still have my girls."
That's true.
We still have a house with girls. And we get home, and we open it up, and we got water on the floor. And it definitely was not as bad as others around here who lost homes. But it was still, it's like, you got thrown to this curveball. And what are you doing now? And you're trying to figure it out. What do we do first? What do we do? And how are we going to do it? And then all of a sudden we get a knock on our door. And open the door, and there's about 7 or 8 people standing there with shop vacs and mops and tools, and they're like, "What can we do?"
Oh, yeah.
And in life, I relate this to the boys. We see people going through hard times and tough times, and you send the message, praying for you, or we'll say, give them an emoji praying hands, or we can just let us know what you can do. Well, if in times, we're a lot of these people were like, well, everybody else has got their struggles. Why do I burden you? Yeah. And it's not what we're asked to do, but at the same time, we just say, well, just let us know. But we had people that showed up, didn't ask them, they heard, and they showed up, and they said, "Can we help?"
That's awesome.
And it was a humbling and moment for us, and I think my wife came up with the idea is show up. You can relate that for anything you do, and no matter what, you got to show up for yourself. You got to show up for your family. You got to show up for your teammate, for your community. We got, and of course, in the time of that frame, we're doing our summer strength conditioning program. We're big on accountability. You got to be here. You got to be here. If you're not here, you got to let us know. And then it came the part where we were sending boys out. He said, "Don't worry about come in the strength conditioning. Go help your neighbors. Help your family, then help your neighbors. And so we were sending them out and, to help where they could. And it just, and that it kind of came, out of that and kind of came who we were. And we had ups and downs this season. We hit a low in district where we were down starters. We were down our leading receiver, our leading tackler, our leading rusher, and we were just trying to get it through district, and kept telling these guys, we can win a first round. We just got to get everybody back together, and you keep coming. And one of these most gratifying things, and then you first of all, you end district with Stephenville. And you're like, all right, we got to get through this one. We want to compete, and play hard, but we got to be healthy because we can win. I believe we can win our first round. Even though going in the 4 seed, we can, go ahead in a 1 seed and go beat a district champion. And I think so much of that was such a validation of these senior kids, of them showing up, continue when there was negativity within the season, when there's he's supposed to be playing here, or this, or we should be doing that, or then we have injuries, and there was all these reasons why this senior class could have quit. Yeah, but they kept showing up. And I was so tickled to death for them when they won that first round playoff game, and just that it kind of validated them and it kind of paid off. Yeah. They kept doing it, and I was able to hand them a gold ball and says, "You did it. You did it." And I don't care if it was my first gold ball. I could care less. It was that they kept doing it, and they earned it. And so that was a great moment for them that they can carry going forward. And your record says 4-8, but you played 2 rounds. And it was able to give them that. I mean, it meant the world to me and our coaches and our community after what they went through, and it was a pretty neat experience as a coach.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I always looked at it. I thought anytime your games add up to 12 or more, you're doing really good. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, so what's one of your most memorable moments in coaching?
Spoke about that one. Yeah. It was just the hard that they had to work through to gain, to get. I think that something I will definitely treasure. I go back to the playoff game that we had in 2023. When we came in, we had a group of sophomores, about 7 sophomores that played varsity. It shouldn't have been. They were talented, but and out of a need, they had to. Yeah. But they stuck with it, went through the process, and then in the end, we were getting down in district, and we playing Davenport and at their place, and they're undefeated, and we're just like, well, let's go get in a rock fight. Come on, let's give them all we got, and get after it. And you find yourself down 3 at half, and the kids believing, and you go out and you end up beating them on their first senior night in the history of the school, their place. And it throws us in. If we win the next week, we're in the 3-way tie for, we get a district champion. And I think that was special because it validated the hard work and the vision that Coach Wood brought here, and the community got behind it. Yeah. And then the kids believed it, and it paid off for them. They got to see, rewarded with that, and then a playoff victory with it as well. So those things are special to me, and there's several others things memorable. I remember a game. Let's see. I was at Colleyville Heritage. We I think it's 2010. We were opening the season. We were playing Duncanville. There in Toyota. I think it's Toyota Stadium in Frisco, and it's a back and forth game, and then they run away with it there towards the end, and they score a touchdown with I think it was like 1:35 left in the game, and they go up 2, and we're just like, oh, okay, wow, okay, it's might be over. I look over in the box, and I was in the press box at the time, and I glance over there, and their coaches are packing up. They packed up their headsets. They went down there, went down the field. Well, by the time they hit the elevator and they get out on the field, we return the kickoff. Okay, I think it's a 96-yard touchdown. We return it, score, onside, get it, go down, score, I think it's 13, 14-yard touchdown as time expires. Kick the extra point, tie the game. We go into overtime. We go to 3 overtimes and beat them. And the funny part about it is it Dykes? I think it was the head coach there, is to see their coaches, they can't get back. Because you go into the field, you got to go around to get back up. So they're scrambling, trying to get over the wall in the stands to get back up there.
Oh, that's
and
great.
They finally get back up there in the second overtime, and we're kind of just like pointing at like, hey, welcome back. And so that's memorable. Great. I think, I throw in, I got a couple memorable games, great memories of baseball on the baseball side of things. And one, I was in Carrollton, and we weren't good. And we were in the best baseball district. We were in there with the Flower Mound School, so Marcus and Flower Mound and Coppell was in there too, and Hebron was in there. And you're just like, I mean, these are guys that's got, at least 3, 4, 5 Division I guys on their team. And we hadn't won a game all year. And we go to Hebron to play them. And all they got to do is get in the playoffs, just beat us. And we end up beating them 8-7 at their place on the senior night. And of course, our kids thought, they won the World Series, and they're, we're dogpiling, and I'm crying.
Was their coach fired after that?
No, Coach Stone is a great guy. He was very
good.
Complimentary about it, but it was just one of those things that. It wasn't a playoff win, but it was some of those guys, and especially those seniors, that they get to go out and they can say, hey, I won our last game, and it really changed the dynamics of the whole district. And so that was fun, and just to seeing those kids enjoy that moment. So those are some things that I treasure.
Yeah, no, those are good
forward.
What about any crazy or unusual situations you've encountered as a coach? Anything really weird or?
I got a couple for you. Come back from my time at Lamesa. One, I was I was coaching JV baseball, and we were playing in Sweetwater, I believe, in a tournament, and we were done and we were ready to head home. And at the time, we had a driver that was the district provided, and I'm getting the kids on the bus and getting them ready, and we're in there, and I go up there and I sit down. In the front seat, and then I look over there, and there's something sitting right behind the driver, and I look over there, and I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, and he starts talking. I can't really understand what he's saying. It's a cow's head. Just sitting there in the seat, and I'm like, back, and I was like, what is it? Oh, it's real good, coach. You're going to eat. And he tells me how he's going to eat.
A real one?
Yes.
Oh,
and then,
God.
So I lean back. I slide towards the window, away from the aisle. I was like, golly. And I look, and there's another one sitting in the other seat or right next to me. And I was like, goodness. So
was he making tamales?
Yeah.
I knew friends of mine growing up, when we would butcher our cows,
like,
we would give the heads to them for tamales.
I was like, I'll take your word for it.
Oh, God.
So that's always stuck with me. Another one is when I was, I believe it was my first year. Yeah, it was my first year. I was coaching middle school, and I was responsible for, I think it was 7th grade B team, and we had our 7th grade A team, football team was playing. And anyway, we were going along, and I'm hearing ruckus or chatter in the stands, but I'm not making it out. And our head coach, our middle school coordinator at the time, his name was Kurt Pierce, and awesome. He was middle school coach for 30-some years in Lamesa. He's just a legend in that area and in that town. He calls a timeout, and he's like, Coach, you got him. And I was like, okay, I don't even know why we called a timeout, but so I gather him over there, and he runs across the tracks, and he climbs up in the stands and starts chewing out our parents. And he's just laying into him. He's like, you're allowed to cheer for your son. You're allowed to cheer for someone else's son. But you cannot use someone else's son's name in a negative way. And he is just laying into him. And I'm sitting there.
That's great.
I had my back to the field, and the kids are looking at me. And I was just like, you can do this? And, of course, knowing him and his background, he'd coached most of those.
Yeah.
He had them in school, middle school, and he was coaching their kids now. So he knew, and he was calling them out by name. And I always was impressed with that. And he did some good things, but he was I learned a lot from him. He's a great guy, and loyalty. You know, when you think loyalty, man, loyalty to one place and for so long. He definitely comes to mind.
There aren't a whole lot of those left out there. We had one at Lono, Coach Dom, that was at the junior high, I think, there forever, and he was kind of a legend out in the Lone area there. But Coach Dom was that same way. It's just people that are willing to sacrifice, never worry about trying to be big on this or that, but will take that. You have that commitment to those young kids, you know, to help them. That's just awesome.
It's invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to the rapid fire questions. All right, what's your favorite pass route?
Sprint draw.
Oh, technically, okay. Yeah, all right.
No,
it looks like a pass, but
no. I'd probably go back to, a couple, days with Coach Fuller. Mesh. I love the mesh concept because, you can run it anywhere on the field. You can run it versus it's easy for the kids, zone versus man. It's pretty base stuff for them to learn. I also like, the your Y cross or, Y choice route, just the old USO MO, under Sam over Mike. I think that one is because, you can exploit the man or you can, make that zone guy make a decision and it's an easy read. Those to me, and plus that USOM, that was always hard to defend. And that is from not such an offensive coordinator's, spot here is a DC of how we were going to defend this and how we were going to pass mesh and, those things. So I liked it just because I hated defending it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good way of looking at it from a defensive side. What's your favorite run play?
Power.
Oh, yeah.
Power, and then, you can run power the other direction.
That's right. That's right.
36, 37, love it. I think it says something about the mentality of your team, and especially or any run play. I think that you can call and you can build your team around and say, this is our calling card. This is who we are. When things are going well, this is where we're going to run it to extend drives. When things are going bad and we get they get a pick six or they just scored, this is what we're going to do to calm us down. Because he can look at each other in the huddles like, yep, I know what we're doing. And it's the confidence of, this is who we are and we're going to do it. But I know there's some other things out there that intrigue me as well. And I love trap. I love trap. That's as well because it's a quick hitter and it's attacking and I hated defending it as well. Especially when you get around the slot teams and from a time at Burnet and facing Liberty Hill and it's 3rd and 10. What are you gonna run? Your normal DC. All right, hey, we got to back up and hey, tackle them here at 8. And you're like, no, trap's coming. I'm gonna squeeze this middle and like you're gonna read that guy. Look at where's that fullback? It's coming. Yeah. And they did it. Coach Walker did a good job with that over there.
Coach Walker's house got flooded during that flood too. Right before he was in the process of going down to Blanco when it happened. Because when he and I were visiting, not long after that, he told me what was going on. Mm-hmm. But during that same flood, he had got a lot of water, I think.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you're right. Power's my favorite play too. We beat Tidehaven one of my last years at Schulenburg by running power a lot, and then when we got down inside the 10, all of a sudden we jumped in a 4-man surface and ran power. And so it was like that end jumped outside my tight end, and that just made two. Oh, yeah, and he just about walked in. But I love it. I'm like you. If I want to change my favorite play, I just change the formation and run it again. Okay, do you have a hair policy with your kids?
Oh, we do. You know, and I always tell the kids if we're doing this, we're brushing it out of your eyes so you can look at. If I can't see your eyes, it's too long.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna keep it off the ear, off the collar. So that's still in our policy. So yeah.
Okay. Heads or tails on a coin flip?
I'm defense, tails. Tails never fails until it does. But
how many times did you win the flip this year?
You know, that was probably
50-50?
50-50, I would say. You know, and of course, if we win, you know, my mentality as a defensive coordinator, when I was calling defense, I wanted us to have the ball. You know, and I just wanted to feel the pace of the game and what it does, and then be able to react and adjust to that. You know, as a head coach, I kind of liked, you know, our defense going on the field first because it's easier for us to calm the kids them down. I also like the idea if you defer, you can feel like if maybe you can steal a position in the first half. And we were always big on the halftime adjustments. I think that's something that the staff here has done well, and we've done well the 5 years I've been here is halftime adjustments.
Okay.
So coming out with, you know, being able to move the ball or adjust. Defensively, I think that it fits kind of who we are, and it speaks volumes about our kids. You know, tell them this is what they're doing. Of course, now with technology, you can show them. You know, it's one thing drawing up on the board, but I said, you know, you keep telling them, you know, he's in a 3, he's in a coach. No, he's head up. Look, right here.
That's got to be the greatest thing. Don't lie to me, son.
Yeah. And so,
well, do you give a pregame speech or no?
I talk to the kids, and usually it's, you know, I don't bring the fire and brimstone. Sometimes I move a little passionately and want something. If I, you know, just hit on a point that we've driven in the whole week.
Yeah.
Of what it's going to take, who we are, you know, but more it's just about them, you know, being a routine, being comfortable, being, hey, you're prepared. No matter what runs out of the tunnel, you're ready. Okay, just cut loose and go play.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite quote you like to use?
That I like to use or the kids always hear?
Either one.
You know, some of those ones, you know, I got some funny ones I always, you know, related to kids, and one of them is funny but not productive. And that's if they do something that's, you know, it's like, hey, we're in practice, we're supposed to be doing something, or I see it, yeah, ha ha, but how does that help us? You know, and I think I started saying that one when I was at Burnet, which caught on. And sometimes, and the kids know it's coming because I look at them, they're like, yeah, funny but not productive. I know. Yeah. Okay, yes sir, yes sir. You know,
like that.
And so that, you know, I also, you know, always really hammer them sometimes about, you know, life is hard enough even when you're doing everything right.
Good point.
You know, it's still going to be hard. So why not do what's right?
Yeah.
You know,
don't add to it.
Yeah, don't add to it. And you know, some of those times with those younger guys or the freshmen, I always just throwing out, you know, are you dumb or just stupid? And, you know, and the puzzling look at them, and I always
that answers your question.
I always quickly jump in. I said, don't answer that. You don't expose yourself, you know. And, you know, some of those things you can say and get away with because of the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I don't say that to any kid or first one is just me, you know, and they know me and know I'm joking when I say that. And it's usually on the back half of them doing something that you might label dumb or stupid, you know. But so those kind of some of the ones I circle back to every once in a while.
Okay, music in the weight room?
Absolutely.
Any particular kind?
Absolutely. You know, we cover all genres. You know, we get your medals. We get, you know, our country. I'm big on 90s country, so that will be on every Saturday morning lift. Is usually we get the 90s country in there. We'll roll. I'll throw some 80s at them. You know, and we've got some you know, we just got to stay control of the playlist, you know.
Yeah.
You
got to keep an eye on that.
Filter that.
Varsity player in the band, do you let them march at halftime?
We haven't here. we have kids who are in the band. Mr. Cox does that program. Who phenomenal band director. You know, he's the guy that we're on defense. He's absolutely there, blowing it up, and he knows and understands about the game, winning the ins and out of a football game, when to be loud, when not. You know, I've been in places, on smaller places, where you needed those guys, but we do have kids that are in band, and we work with them on scheduling wise. But normally at halftime, we usually have them with us.
Okay. Do you try to two-platoon your kids, or do they have to play both ways?
I'm always quoted as saying, our dogs are our dogs. You know, as much as we lie, we try to, you know, save our own linemen. If we can find a good core of offensive linemen and we feel like we're not losing anything on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's important for that group to be together as much as possible, meshing.
Yeah.
So, that group, we try to find that group that they're like, all right, we're staying with them. We've got two great O-line coaches here. They'll be with one for most of the time, majority of practice. But for the most part, everybody else they're playing both ways.
Gotcha.
And they're learning spots. If we can find and settle in on a starting quarterback, we will pull him off that side. Just, you know, it's just his value in that. He gets a little bit more time with our quarterback's coach. But for the most part, yeah, they gotta be on the field.
Okay. Do you have a favorite facility you've played in?
Man, I've got. We were. Remember the old. You look at it, Texas Stadium.
Oh yeah.
Before they tore that down, I got some great memories in that. Of course, I was up in the crow's nest, and there was water running about 4 inches deep up there, and then the rats were escaping the water, so they're crawling across your headset. But I'm sitting there going like, I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome. And then unfortunately, when I was at Colleyville, that's when they opened up Cowboy Stadium that year, and we got to play in the second game ever there at Colleyville. We played Irving MacArthur. And, you know, one of our kids actually is in the record book. He scored the first defensive touchdown. I think John Miles.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Sack and a scoop and score. So, so that is. And, of course, always, if you're West Texas, it's the Mustang Bowl in Sweetwater. That's just, you know, I think everybody that's been there can say it. And it's just such an iconic place. And when you could be that home team and you walk up on the side and you come down through the stands, and it's really great when the parents don't know it's coming, you know, and you walk right down 2 by 2 to reach the field, and they got the parents on both sides. Man, that's something that's just special. And of course, there's just so many great games and playoff games that's been played there. So I definitely would say the Mustang Bowl.
Okay. If you could change one rule in football, what would it be?
It'd have to be targeting.
Yeah,
it's just I understand the reason, and why you're trying to take out the head-to-head contact, and why you're trying to protect kids and the safety. But at the high school level, we just don't have the technology to back that up. Yeah. And when you do that and you call that, and a guy gets kicked out of a game, you know, you're high school athletes. You're not even guaranteed these 10 games. And when you rob that of them, whether right or wrong,
I'm surprised they haven't already backed off on that suspension part of it. I really thought that would be they would have caught so much grief after the first year or two of that. They would have said, "You're right. That part is not necessary."
And you know, I understand the penalty, I understand the safety of the game, but I just feel like when and so more too is the officials. Any violent hit, it seems like it's called. You get a violent hit. No, that's a great hit. That's a great tackle. And then we're just going to flag it because it's violent. I think the other thing that if it's not really a penalty, but I think that's come apparent in the last couple of years in the games is. Officials blow whistles late now, and their cause they
You're way late.
they want to allow the play
to stop itself.
They
told me that crud all the time, and I was like, what?
Well, don't get upset when my kid is going to the whistle, but he can't see the play.
Yeah.
I'm taking my guy, out wide, and now we're getting flagged because, we're continuation or it's roughness or whatever it is, and I said, how's that help them, And so, those are the things, you can get frustrated about, but it is the game, and you have to be able to coach those things and adjust to it and teach accordingly.
Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite pregame song?
I don't have one. I think one of my great experiences now that, my older son, he's 11, he's a ball boy. And so he'll travel with us on out-of-town games, and we sit right next to each other, and sometimes we'll share a headset or share, music we're listening to. And, I'll go to more of, kind of just some praise and worship music.
Yeah,
honestly.
That's good.
It just helps calms me. You get, there's be times, you welcome the nerves, you welcome the excitement, but, you got on a road trip, and it just kind of helps bring me back to ground zero, and it calms me. And he's
calm before the storm.
Yeah, he's got a Christian rapper he likes, KB, and so he's got a playlist.
He's good.
So, yeah. So we listen to that, and it's kind of one of our bonding moments. And so,
that's cool.
I really enjoy that, and maybe it's just because he's next to me as much as anything, and I get to share this moment. And it's kind of like I look at him, and it's like, man, you're living the 11-year-old Coach Speer's dream right now. So it's pretty great.
That's good. What about favorite football movie?
Favorite football, I probably would circle back. I remember the Titans.
Yeah.
I love that one. The Friday Night Lights. I also enjoyed the series. And I think
I didn't like the series.
I liked it. Some of it was
my wife loved
it. Proportion. You're like, okay,
yeah,
that was
what.
But I think you go back to what you said. My wife was introduced. When we started watching that, is kind of she goes, that didn't really happen. I was like, well, that actually is it's more or less the truth of what goes on, and it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look at it, you're like, no, that's out of whack. But and I think that was a good introduction to her and into the football life. And so, yeah, I would say probably those two.
Okay.
Facing the Giants is also a great one.
That
people
was
say
good.
is it kind of get a little corny, but man, the message is just spectacular within it.
And when he did that crawl, whatever, the death crawl or whatever it was, yeah, that was good. Mm-hmm. We went and watched that as a team in Lone Oak. Randy Jackson took us over there. We watched it as a team.
Gotcha.
I think that was when it was. I think that was the one we went and watched that year. I may be getting them mixed up. But what about a favorite sports movie overall? Is it one of those still?
Man, those are tough. There's a lot to draw from. I like Miracle. I remember the sports movie first that I felt like it was about life and struggles, and it was The Natural.
That was good.
Robert Redford. That was, man, I love that movie, and just
the soundtrack that went along with it's like kind of
phenomenal. And of course, just the kid at heart is Sandlot, and as my kids have grown up, just being able to share
one of my favorites.
That experience with them, and they love it, and so those are fun.
Yeah, there's so many good ones. Okay, and we already talked about NIL and portal stuff kind of earlier. But what do you think about those in general? Do you like them? Wish they'd modify them? Wish they'd modify them?
I believe those athletes deserve, they deserve some form of payment, of what they do, and besides the education, for the longest time we're like, yeah, you're getting rewarded this great education, but at the same time, they can't go out to the movies, or they can't go on a date, or they can't enjoy any of their college life because they don't have the time, to have a job.
Yeah.
Or they come from a home situation where they are not, they don't have parents that are able to send them money to use. And, and so I think, but yeah, I believe it's got to get under control.
Yeah.
what it is right now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Coach, that's all the questions I have for you. I appreciate you taking the time. I enjoyed visiting with you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming up here.
Yes, sir. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your spring.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today with Coach Speer here in Burnet. Oh, I said it. See, I told you I'd screw it up the next time and burn it. I hope you enjoyed getting to know a little more about him and his thoughts on some of today's questions and topics. I'm not sure where I'll be next week, trying to still get something set up. And I know there's a lot of movement in the realignment, so I hope it treated most of y'all well with your redistricting. So thanks again for listening. And remember, if you're lost in Texas, just look for the lights.
We're that red and white on a Friday night when my hometown takes the field. I say yes sir, yes ma'am, try to be the best man. That's how I feel. No matter where my heart runs, I remember where I came from. Still got that raised up